So today, we're going to take a journey into one of the world's most ancient libraries of stories, the Jataka Tales. But listen, these aren't just simple fables for kids. Oh no, they are an absolutely profound collection of insights into human nature, morality, and the real-world consequences of our actions.
So, what on earth can a clever monkey, a compassionate king, and a hungry crocodile teach us about living a better life? I know, it sounds like a weird cast of characters, right? But believe me, they are central to some of the most powerful and enduring lessons on wisdom and virtue ever told.
So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, the Jataka Tales are this massive collection. I mean, over 500 stories from ancient India. And at their core, every single tale is presented as a story from one of the many past lives of the Buddha on his long, long path to enlightenment. It's a truly epic narrative.
And get this, the hero of every single one of these stories is the Bodhisattva, which basically means the enlightenment being. In each life, he's reborn in a different form. Sometimes he's an animal, sometimes a god, and sometimes a human. And the whole point of all these rebirths was to learn, to grow, and to perfect all the qualities needed to finally achieve enlightenment.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the core themes. First up, the triumph of wisdom. A lesson that comes up again and again in these tales is that a sharp mind and clear thinking can overcome even the most dangerous physical threats.
All right, check out this classic setup. You've got a monkey who loves the fruit on an island in the middle of a river. To get there, he has to jump onto a rock midway across. Simple enough. But one day, a hungry crocodile, who really wants to eat the monkey's heart, decides to disguise himself as that very rock. A simple but deadly problem. And this is where the monkey's genius really shines. It's not just about being clever, it's a whole process. He doesn't panic. First, he just observes. That rock looks a little higher today. Then, he forms a little hypothesis and runs a test, calling out to it. And when the foolish crocodile actually answers, the monkey knows he's right. He then masterfully turns the croc's greed against him, tricks him into opening his mouth, and uses his head as a stepping stone of safety. It's just a perfect example of how strategic thinking beats brute force every time. But you know, it's not all about being the smartest one in the room. These tales also champion the profound power of a good heart, virtues like compassion and patience, even when you're facing the most extreme situations imaginable.
For this one, we meet a character, and you gotta love the name, King Goodness the Great. He was so famous for his compassion that it was said he loved all beings like a father loves his children. But being good doesn't save him from conflict. An enemy king captures him and his ministers and has them buried in a cemetery, alive, with only their heads sticking out of the ground.
Okay, and this is where the story just gets incredible. Even buried alive, King Goodness feels zero anger. So when some jackals show up, instead of panicking, he just waits. As one gets close, he grabs its chin with his teeth, not to hurt it, just to hold on tight. The jackal, of course, freaks out, thrashing around wildly, and in doing so, it loosens all the packed earth around the king's neck. This allows him to wiggle free and then save all his ministers. Amazing, right? And this just brilliantly illustrates the moral of the story, which is stated right there in the text. Refusing to harm others, the good heart wins overall. His compassion and his calm mind weren't weaknesses at all. They were literally the tools that saved his life. Okay, so we've seen wisdom, we've seen compassion, but the Jataka Tales aren't just a highlight reel of heroes. They are also packed with cautionary tales, showing us the other side of the coin, the trap of human folly. They're these stark warnings against things like ingratitude, greed, and betrayal.
In one of these stories, you've got a holy man just living his life peacefully out in the forest. He hears a woman's cries. She's drowning in a river during a big storm. He rushes to save her, nurses her back to health, and she ends up seducing him. They leave the forest life behind, live together in a village, until one day she gets kidnapped by a group of bandits.
But here's the twist, and it is a huge one. The woman, who the tale actually calls the Wicked Lady, well, she kind of enjoys her new, exciting life with the bandits. So she gets worried that her old partner will come rescue her and take her away. So what does she do? She sends him a letter pretending to be miserable and begging him to save her. And when he shows up, she hands him right over to the bandits, who then beat him mercilessly.
I mean, the contrast in these outcomes couldn't be more clear, right? On one side, you have King Goodness, whose compassion and refusal to harm anyone become the very tools of his salvation, leading to freedom.
And on the other, you have this woman whose ingratitude and betrayal lead directly to violence and suffering. The tales put these two paths right next to each other to show us the very clear consequences of each choice.
So all of this brings us to the big question. Why have these stories, some of which are over 2,000 years old, stuck around for so long and across so many cultures? What gives them their lasting power?
I think it really boils down to a few key things. The moral lessons are incredibly clear and direct. The characters, whether we're talking about animals or flawed humans, are just so memorable and relatable. They're grappling with universal themes, wisdom versus foolishness, compassion versus cruelty. And crucially, they all illustrate the principle of karma, the idea that our actions, both good and bad, create the consequences that shape our lives. And ultimately, this is why these tales matter so much. They aren't just fables. They are a deep, profound library of human psychology. They really act as a mirror, helping us understand our own motivations, our weaknesses, and our potential for greatness. They offer a timeless blueprint for how to navigate life in a more thoughtful and compassionate way.
And that brings us to our final thought. As you go about your day, I want you to think about this. If your life right now were a Jataka tale being told centuries from now, what would its central theme be? What lesson would it teach?